Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit Relationship Advice and it's by user ThraImpress6525. My 26 female fiance is convinced I have a crush on my friend's husband. My best friend Sarah, 26 female, and her husband Matt, 28 male, have put me in a very difficult position with my fiance Jack, 30 male. I know Matt since my childhood. He was my neighbor and we were friendly. Sarah and I were roommates in college and became close friends. When I introduced Sarah and Matt, they hit it off and started dating each other. I was happy to see two of my friends get together, but also annoyed that I became the third wheel and was often ignored or set aside because they were so into each other. By the time I graduated, Matt had completely dropped me as a friend. That saddened me, but I was still good friends with Sarah, so it was what it was. Sarah and I would frequently hang out, but I never talked with Matt other than the occasional polite hellos. Sarah would sometimes try to do couples dates with her and Matt and me and my dates. I found that Matt had developed an unpleasant personality and would frequently be rude and condescending toward me. However, he's a very devoted and loving husband to Sarah, so for her sake I ignored him. When my fiance and I got engaged, we had no plans to do a party. Sarah was disappointed that we didn't throw an engagement party, so she organized a small get-together at her home to celebrate us. The party was nice, and as things were winding down, my fiance and I went to thank Sarah and Matt for their sweet gesture before we took our leave. Matt was pretty tipsy by then, and out of nowhere, he suddenly hugged me and in front of my fiance said that he was so glad that I was finally settling down and he is relieved that now I'll be over the crush I had on him. I was shocked and told him that wasn't true. He just laughed and told Jack that I was always chasing him and he had to work hard to keep me away. I dragged Sarah in and asked her to please fix this mess, and she was all like, "Oh, he's drunk, ignore him," and says, "You know I always trust you. I know you wouldn't act on your crush." Jack was pretty pissed by this point and he walked out. I ran after him and tried explaining that this isn't true, but he told me he doesn't want to be anyone's second choice or their backup plan. Since that night, he isn't talking to me or returned my calls. I have talked to Sarah multiple times to clear things with Jack, but she's brushing me off. I don't understand why they believe this or why she'd stay friends with me if she thought I was into her husband. I was part of her wedding party and did all the work because her sister, who was the maid of honor, was too busy. I have helped her through her pregnancy and have babysat her kids so many times. She never gave me any indication she thought this, and why would she want me close to her family if she believed this? I feel humiliated that these people think I was pining away for a jerk like Matt. I need help in convincing Jack this isn't true. I am also mad at him for throwing away our relationship over what some drunken idiot said. I don't know what I'm going to do about my friendship with Sarah. Well, OP, honestly, it doesn't sound like Sarah is that much of a friend to you. I mean, if she knows that what her husband said isn't true, and also that it's hurting your relationship, why wouldn't she want to clear it up? I mean, we're talking about you, OP, her best friend, the woman who basically coordinated her wedding and babysits her kid. So yeah, OP, it sounds to me like she's not your friend at all. And of course, by extension, that jerk Matt. So regarding your friendship with Sarah, I'd say it's about over. Now regarding Jack, I do think he does have some sort of a point, not a big one, but some sort of a point. However, the way he's handling things is horrible. I understand not wanting to be somebody's second choice, but that isn't the case here. So really, OP, I would give this one a second thought just as he is, because if this is his way to react without even hearing you out, then that's quite telling about the type of relationship or marriage that you might have. And what do you guys think about this whole situation? Let me know in the comments section, and now let's move on to the community comments to see what they said. It's All Mine Now says, Sarah thinks it's true too. She was confident in her relationship and didn't see it as an issue, but I'm pretty sure she thought it as well. That's why she's brushing you off, because she agrees with him. For Matt to F up your relationship that relieves him of his responsibility of thinking you have a crush on him is irony of the highest effing level. He's a prick to say that in front of Jack. Point out to her that her husband effed up your relationship and you expect them to do something about it or you're through with them. I have no idea how to heal this with Jack. He likely won't listen unless he comes to his senses when he calms down. The issue is whether he'll communicate with you at all, but if he does, go full guns on how ridiculous it is that you got them together and would have never done that if you were after him yourself. Meanwhile, drop all contact with Sarah and Matt. They're just effing with your life and they sound pretty smug and nasty to me. Deleted says, Matt and Sarah effed you bad. Jack is right. No one's second choice. Fess up. If Matt is aware that you have or had a crush, I am sure you know the truth too. And Dopey responds, I've been thinking over and over about what in my behavior would make them think I had a crush on Matt, and I am fairly sure I didn't do anything to give that indication. I liked him when we were kids, and if he had asked me out in our teens, I'd probably said yes, but that was a long time ago. Even then, I didn't chase him or anything. The only time I've done anything personal for Matt is when Sarah was dating him and wanted my help in throwing a surprise party and picking out a gift, and I asked his sibling what he'd like from Sarah. Puzzle2825 says, the way you describe Matt dropping you as a friend and behaving in a condescending and rude way going forward kind of makes me think he has been the one with the crush. And he overcompensated and told lies about you to Sarah so she would ignore his own feelings for you. And blurting that out while drunk was completely calculated in my opinion, and Sarah's immediate agreement makes it seem like he's perpetuated this idea for years. He's a bitter man and she's shown you for years she's okay with him treating you badly. I would hate to hear what they say behind your back. I'm sorry about Jack. Hopefully, given time, he will come around to hear your side of things, but his big reaction to that situation is telling you how he will handle any future uncomfortable situations, and is something to consider. Additional information from OP's comments. I am trying to get Sarah to talk to Jack and to deny this, but she's not doing that. I don't understand why she won't do this for me. I am quite desperate to not lose Jack, but I am also angry about his actions here. I don't give a crap about Matt, but Sarah's lack of care is heartbreaking to me. And I know I can't blame Jack, but I do wish he'd have had more faith in the woman he was planning to marry. OP's short-term update. I talked to Sarah again and asked her, first of all, why she'd think I had a crush on Matt. She said that when I first introduced them, I had talked up Matt and gushed about him, and she took that as me being into him. I said I was fond of him since I've known him for a long time, but that doesn't mean I want to be with him. She said when they started dating, I was often upset about it. I said I wasn't upset about their dating. I was upset that she'd make plans with me and then leave me to be with him, and when we were all together, I didn't enjoy being the third wheel while they ignored me. That had nothing to do with wanting him, and more with not liking being left out by my best friend. I asked her why she hadn't said anything before, and she explained that she could manage the situation. She had asked Matt to stop talking to me completely, and she engineered situations so there was little chance of us socializing with each other. I asked her, now that I have explained that I never had a crush on Matt, can you please talk to Jack and tell him? She said she didn't want to lie. This frustrated me immensely. She could ignore this imaginary crush for years and manipulate me, but won't talk to my fiancé to help my relationship. I told her I was done being her friend. Thinking back, I was always doing stuff for her and she used me, but did little for me. Alright, well, the community agrees. Neither Sarah nor Matt are friends of OP and she should drop them. And also, Jack's behavior was kinda poor. Now, let's move on to the first of two updates. But of course, at this point, I gotta show you another one of my playlists that only has videos with updates, like this one. Now, let's move on to the update. So, I wrote a long letter to Jack explaining the entire history of my relationship with Sarah and Matt, with the recent screen caps. I asserted as best as I could that I had never pined after any guy, that I loved him and he was my only choice. After days of silence, Jack agreed to talk to me. We met and he said that he sees two ways of interpreting the situation. One, Matt and Sarah are right and he doesn't want to be my second choice. Two, they are malicious people who are messing with me, and that shows very poor judgment on my part, that I'd have a best friend like this and he doesn't want that quality in a life partner. Either possibility leads to the same conclusion, that he wants to call off the engagement. He reminded me that I had represented Sarah as one of the most important people in my life. I'd jump up and help her all the time. I had once cancelled plans with him to take care of her kid when the baby was sick. It irked him, but he had seen it as me being caring and nice, but now he's seeing all that in a different light. I cried and begged him not to end our engagement, but he wanted a break for a while. I thought over what he said for a few days and came to realize that he was right. I was a clingy friend and a doormat. I never even saw how much one-sided my friendship with Sarah was. I was a doormat with Jack too. I didn't want to get married or have kids this early, but agreed to his timelines. I gave up an exciting job opportunity with more money because he didn't want me traveling for work. I love him, but I need to fix myself and be stronger. I gave back his ring and ended things. I returned all the gifts he gave me too. He was offended by that, but I didn't feel good about keeping the very expensive things he had given me. He makes a lot more than me and was very generous with what he gave me, but I can't keep that now. Sarah was quiet for a while, but then started calling me. I ignored a lot of her calls, but this morning I answered her call and told her about the breakup. I was looking for sympathy from my old friend. She was more interested in knowing if I was still going to watch her kid while she and Matt went on an overnight trip. She got pretty angry when I said no. I have blocked her now. I have lost my fiance, my best friend, and my relationship with my nephew whom I adored, all in one go. But still, I am thankful for the comments that showed this wasn't something I could fix and helped me rip off the band-aid and walk away from this mess. Alright, well, so far it seems like a really cool and positive update. I mean, OP realized that she needs to work on herself before she's in a serious relationship or anything like that. Anyway, let's move on to the final update to see how this story ends. It's been 2 months since my last update, and I wanted to thank all the people who commented and DM'd good advice to me about my previous posts. I especially want to thank those who advised me about the job I turned down. I took up that suggestion and went and talked to the hiring manager, explaining that I was very passionate about the work, but I couldn't travel back then due to certain family responsibilities, but I am able to travel now. He didn't have that position open anymore, but he connected me with a manager in a different region. This job required relocating very far away, and that seemed like a blessing at this point, so I jumped on it. I am now in a new city and very grateful for leaving behind the mess that my relationships had become. The fallback after my engagement broke was not pleasant. I don't have a good relationship with my parents because they have always been very critical of me. This incident seemingly justified all their opinions of me, and they crowed a lot about how I have ruined the only good thing I had managed in my life. Even though I explained what happened, the impression my family has is that Matt's family tried to do a nice thing for me and I had a tantrum at their party and my fiance broke up with me because of my behavior. I am so grateful for my job for allowing me to move away from all these people. My ex-sister-in-law had called me a few times to talk to me, but I avoided her for a very long time because I didn't think I could deal with more criticism. I did agree to see her a few days before I moved. She wanted clarification on why we broke up because she said that the reason Jack had given her was so dumb she was convinced he wasn't telling her the truth. She told me what he said and he had given her the correct details. I confirmed that's what had happened and she was dumbfounded. I hadn't realized this, but she liked me very much and thought well of me. I was so moved I cried. She might be the only person in real life who felt I wasn't in the wrong. She tried to convince me to talk to her brother and work this out. She was very disappointed to hear that I was moving away. Another reason I am glad for the relocation, otherwise I'd have been tempted to agree to her setting up a meet. Later, Jack left me a message saying we should talk, but I haven't responded to him. I've moved and I am settling down in this new place. I am very busy with my new job and getting used to a very different lifestyle in this big city. I have thought about calling him, but then I think I should let that lie and work on building a new life for myself. Well, OP, I agree. There's no need to call that. That's part of your past. You just need to move on now. I wish you all the best of success in this new city, OP, and in the rest of your life as well. Take care and thank you so much for sharing. Now, let's finish this video with a mood booster post. This post is from the subreddit Malicious Compliance, and it's by user JamesPG614. Break the law? Sure thing, boss. Sign here, please. I used to work as a spare parts estimator for a fair niche industry. My job was essentially to work out what parts of our main product the customer wanted, find out how much it would cost us to make, add a little markup, and send them the quote. My boss was pretty strict on traceability, so everything needed to be recorded, including why a certain markup had been applied to a particular product. The normal value of these quotes is somewhere between £200 and a few $100,000. Very rarely do we get orders for anything more than that, once or twice a decade in my experience. A request for a quotation landed on my desk when I was working from home during COVID, and it was a biggie. Just looking at the list of parts the customer wanted, this was going to be an absolute killer, over £1 million all by itself. I was told by the sales guy that if this one went well, there was another to follow of an even bigger size, ultimately looking at 10 million over the next 4 years. So I set to work. Normally, I can do 5 or 6 of these quotes in a day, but this one quote took me 6 weeks to put together. I was in constant contact with 20 plus vendors getting specifications, technical details, prices, and lead times for over 400 items. Finally, my masterpiece was complete. Then came the snag. The sales guy then says that because of the country this customer is in, they need to have 4 or more quotes from different customers in order to get it cleared by their government, some anti-corruption policy that had been instituted. We were the original equipment manufacturer of the product, and there's nowhere else on the planet they could get these parts from, so we'd have to work through third parties to get it done, and he knew just the guy. In comes a one-man band with a dodgy-looking entry to save the day. The sales guy and he go way back, so he was going to be the preferential supplier. So I was asked to do the normal quote to him, then to bump the prices up by 30% and send that to 3 other companies who had been asking about it, so they would absolutely not get the contract with the end user. I argued the point, saying that the whole purpose of the anti-corruption policy is to prevent situations exactly like this. But I was overruled. The COO of the company now tells me to just do it over a phone call, at which point I request that in writing before I go ahead and do it. Fast forward 2 years and there has still no order been placed. Then I find out through a different sales guy that the one-man band has been put on a blacklist by this country's government over this project. The other 3 companies have been turned down, and the end user is asking other companies to come in and take our product out and replace it with their own. A huge investigation is called for by senior management. My quote is ripped to pieces and examined in microscopic detail, and the question gets asked, why did you give 5 different prices to these other 3 when you knew it was all to do with anti-corruption? We should fire you. That's millions of pounds of orders, you've lost us. Out comes the email from my little black book. On the desk it goes. Everyone suddenly gets very quiet, and the COO starts packing his desk in a box the next week. And the moral of the story is, if someone tells you to do something borderline illegal, make sure to get it in writing. OP's edit. For those asking about the legality of what I did, because of all the third parties were outside of the country where the anti-corruption policy was in place, I didn't personally break any laws. I did investigate this at the time, and if there were going to be any implications on me that my company wouldn't have been responsible for, it would have been a flat no. I was acting against the intention of the policy, but not expressly breaking it. Do not do something illegal just because your boss told you to. The issue, as far as the company was concerned, was the loss of millions in revenue and the damage to its reputation. They ultimately wanted a scapegoat to parade in front of the board to explain why the multi-million-pound deal they'd all been talking about for the last 2 years had suddenly vanished. OP's edit 2. After posting this, I did a bit of research into the final customer, and their VP of Finance did some fairly well publicized jail time a few years back for buying an oil rig for the company at a suspiciously low price. So there was no way we would have been able to convince the government that everything was above board with a direct sale. Well, OP, he wanted to get it done, so it's a good thing you got him to sign for it. Thank you for sharing, OP. Take care. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out, so here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later, and also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.